So I'll introduce Jarrett now. JayRay is a passionate storyteller, media creator, and host dedicated to sparking meaningful conversations. Hailing from Stone Mountain, Georgia, JayRay specializes in radio, podcasting, and video production, using his platform to explore culture, society, and personal narratives. A graduate of Piedmont University with a double major in mass communications and film and documentary production, he is the creator of Real Talk Radio and the documentary that you're going to see tonight, Displaced but Not Erased. Now a team member of Cumulus Media, JayRay continues to refine his craft in broadcasting and filmmaking, always seeking new ways to amplify stories that matter. I first met Jarrett back in September of last year. He made an appointment to come into the archives to view material related to Decatur and the Beacon Hill neighborhood for his documentary. I was excited to know that the documentary was going to happen, and we talked about doing the screening here, and here we are. So I'd like to bring up Jarrett to say a few words before the film. We will then watch the film, which is about 20 minutes, and then Jarrett will be available to answer questions after the film. So Jarrett, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It truly means a lot to see so many people gathered to witness and engage with this project. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that while February is officially Black History Month, Black history is every day. And since we're now in March, I also want to wish you all a happy Women's History Month. Women have played a crucial role in shaping our history, yet too often their contributions are overlooked and undervalued. This month serves as a reminder that we don't appreciate women the way we should, and that needs to change. So tonight, we honor both Black history and the women, past and present, who have fought to make a difference, including those whose stories are intertwined with Beacon Hill. So for those who have never seen this film, Displaced but Not Erased is more than just a film. It's a testament to a community that once thrived, but was systematically dismantled through urban renewal and gentrification. However, despite the displacement, the legacy of this neighborhood and its people remain. This project is deeply personal to me. It's not just about preserving history, it's about making sure these stories are heard, ensuring that the voices of those affected are recognized, and sparking necessary conversations about the real impact of gentrification. Too often, communities like Beacon Hill are erased, but we're here tonight to make sure that does not happen. I want to extend a special thank you to all of the former Beacon residents who are here tonight. Your presence is a reminder of the strength and perseverance of this community. I also want to give a huge thanks to Jennifer, who not only came up with the idea for the screening, but I also want to share that I recently had the incredible opportunity to be, not really good at the speech things outside of that. But she worked tirelessly to organize and promote it. Her efforts made this event possible, and she is also responsible for the bulk of archive material you will see throughout the film. Jennifer, your dedication to preserving this history is invaluable, and we are grateful for your work. After the screening, we'll have a Q&A session, obviously, and I encourage you all to share your thoughts, reflections, and any stories you'd like to add to this ongoing narrative. Again, thank you all for being here. Your support means everything, and I hope this film resonates with you in a meaningful way.
Mic here, and I'm happy to come around and give the mic to anybody who might have questions for Jarrett. Also wanted to mention that Jarrett was interviewed recently by WABE in Atlanta. If you would like to hear that interview, you can go to wabe.org and look for City Lights program. Jarrett's interview on there is available. So does anybody have any questions for Jarrett?
My name is Wanda Sam's Waters. I was born up the street in 1953. My question is how did you come up with people to interview for the history? Okay.
Wanda Sims?
Yes, Sims was my maiden name, now it's Waters.
I think I heard your name before.
I'm sure.
But thank you for that question. 3 wasn't in the cards for real. My the gentleman under JayRay that's in the film, that's my father. I believe he had 6 or 7 siblings. I'm pretty sure he's gonna correct me after that. But my original plan was to interview all of them and get the story from their perspective. Like I said, this is a personal story to me, and that's really how the inspiration came about. But a lot of them weren't too comfortable being on camera, so then I kind of just shifted gears and reached out to a lot of my father's friends, including some.
Hi, my name is Chachi, and thank you for that wonderful, informative film. Where do those 3 people live now?
Thank you, Chachi, for that question. I believe my father stays in Stone Mountain, Mr. Kenny Caldwell, I hate to put you on the spot. That is one of the characters that was in the film. Where do you live beside? I think it's Clarkson, right? Yeah, so he lives in Clarkson. Miss Marion Strickland, I believe she still lives somewhat close to Decatur. I don't know the exact spot. And Clarence Jr. also lives close to Decatur, that's her brother. So yeah, they still live close to Decatur. We all live kind of close to Decatur.
You know, I knew nothing about Beacon Hill until I talked to this woman who crashed in 1949. So that's when Beacon Hill was
Just the birth.
the birth of it.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, the birth of it. So I had no idea, and I think most people didn't know that there was a black section of downtown Decatur, Georgia. So I learned from Ms. Wilson, who just told me the history about it. So thank you so much for that. But I want to ask you a question. What inspired you to do this project?
Man.
I know it's a big.
Yeah, because I always butcher it, but I'm gonna try to get it right for y'all today. So the original plan was for me to interview, do a story about my dad. You know, growing up as a kid, your parents always tell you these stories about your family, and how they grew up, and you kind of learn about them, and then kind of compare it to how we are today. And because you know, they tell you these stories and it stays kind of consistent. I'll be honest, Dad, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Your stories are a little inconsistent, so I paid attention to that. So you know, they always touch on his great grandmother, who Ms. Wilson can attest to that she was a big part of the community, but never knew anything about my grandfather or my mother. So I just did a little investigating, and I interviewed him. And I know he said he was from the projects and whatnot, and we all know the stereotypical story about the projects. Like, my dad's from the hood, man. We made it in the suburbs now. And that just wasn't the case. And then I came about him really explaining really what Beacon Hill was and what Decatur really was back then. And then I sparked that story. And then I interviewed Mr. Kenny Caldwell, man. The very first interview, I wish y'all could see it. The way he spoke about Decatur, the way he gazed into the wind. He was just compared it to like a glory land, which to some people in the Beacon Hill area was. And that's kind of how that story came about.
Thank you for putting this together, presenting these perspectives. It's really good to see. I'm curious, what do you know about the mechanisms or actually use to push people out of this area? Legal mechanisms or economically, or how exactly did it come about? And also, you know anything about the decision to not only push people out, but also change the street grid entirely?
Yeah, I'm still learning that part. I mean, to be honest, throughout the whole process of producing this, it was an anxiety attack, I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't realize how much of a big piece this was. When you're telling the story, especially from the perspective of other people, and you have to tell it correctly. So you're constantly getting information. I mean, there's like I said, really I chose the right project just at the wrong time. I didn't know, I took a lot of research. So as I was even editing this piece, after recording it, I was still adding pieces and more information, learning more information. To the point where I was just like, I need to further this in a later time and just compact it as much as I can. To answer your question, I'm still learning that. I know for a fact that, oh, sorry, you want to say something?
I got the
Okay. Yeah.
My name is Jarrett. I grew up about 200, 300 yards from where we are right now on Electric Avenue, right across the street from Trinity High School. And my grandfather was a pretty large landowner in the community at the time. And even though I was a child back in the 60s, but I think the rule that they invoked was the right of eminent domain. So they came in and they said, because of eminent domain, we're going to buy your property from you, and we're going to give you an offer for the property, and the first offer will be the best offer, and then they will diminish. Each successive offer will be diminished. Most of the people took the first offer.
Thank you. I never knew that. I appreciate that.
My name is Doug Porter. I'm very new to the area, and I'm very intrigued by how much of a community this was, and I guess from my own personal perspective, growing up, and I'm 75 years old, and so my life kind of coincides with this. Many of us of that age grew up in neighborhoods where we were raised by the neighborhood, and I don't have a question on this. It just kind of makes me sad that this disappeared, because I know how important it is for us to know where we came from, and it just, I found it very touching, and I want to compliment you for putting all this together.
Thank you, Doug. That's another inspiration behind it was how, because I know it wasn't necessarily like the poorest area, but it was an area that they didn't have much, but they made everything. They did everything they could with what they had, and they did it together. And I feel like that's kind of lost, especially my generation, and that kind of also sparked my inspiration for this piece. How you doing, Miss Wilson? Good.
If I could just ask you if you would add, in the beginning of your documentary, that Allen Wilson Homes the application was submitted in the mid-1930s. The apartments was built and completed, and the first family moved in 1944. The first baby to be born in the new apartments was Allen Brooks. His parents named him Allen Brooks. Allen Wilson, no relation to me. He was, and if I could just ask everybody, Dr. Allen Wilson was a Presbyterian minister. He was an educator. He started the first school for African American kids in the city of Decatur. I would just be more than happy if we could get away from calling them the projects. Project bring negative. Dr. Allen Wilson was a very positive image in the city. we got at least another couple of months that you and I need to talk and I'll share maps, clippings, articles, photos with you if you need.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Yeah, Ms. Wilson been doing that course over for a long time. But the reason I don't like to call it projects, but I understand the negativity behind projects. While I'm doing that, let me go ahead and, if you want to learn more about this community or just about these type of situations, Ms. Wilson and I also did an interview for a podcast I did also for school. It's a 12-episode series called Project Babies, even though most of these places are affordable housing. And that was the inspiration behind that podcast, to talk about the stereotypes behind projects. Because like what Ms. Wilson said, when my dad told me, I believe his first words were the projects or OPs or old buildings or whatnot. And in my generation, we kind of see that as, people kind of take that with negativity and drugs and all this other stuff. But when I spoke with DeKalb, Marion Strict and JayRay, the way they described this community was nothing like they kind of describe it today in the news or in the media. So that's another thing you can check out. So it's called Project Babies. It's on anywhere you can get podcasts. And I talked with Ms. Wilson, her son, my dad, some of the characters you see in the film, and people from other affordable housing areas, giving their perspectives on the stereotypes of affordable housing, public housing areas.
Hi, my name is Doris Sims Johnson. I'm 75 years old, grew up on Elizabeth Street, product of Beacon Elementary School, part years at Trinity High School, one of the first 10 to integrate Decatur High School when our schools were closed, and right now one of the principal organizers with my sister for Decatur Day, which we celebrate. That's really what I'm talking about. I can't fill you in on the history, but I would just tell you that I understand, I'm glad you said, this started out as a family project, and to interview your family members. I know Lansing and Nan, those are the ones we grew up with, your mother and auntie and that kind of thing, okay? So there's the history of Decatur during the days when we lived there, when it was all the blacks in that area. It's so vast. It's so much to be told. Yeah. And there's so many perspectives. And I wouldn't want anybody to think that this is all it was. So I was glad when you said the family thing. So there's so many family stories to tell. But the one thing I always like to promote, we were a vibrant community. We were poor by economic standards, but we were not poor. We didn't know we were poor. So if that tells you anything, we had everything in terms of a village and love and community that we shared and grew up and raised well. Many of us went on to go to college or go trade or do other jobs and things. So we had that upbringing, but it was by our parents and the neighbor, all the adults in the area who looked after you and took care of you. And so we did thrive in a city where segregation was the rule of law, so you had no choice with that. But it didn't define where you went beyond there. So I want to just tell y'all, every Saturday before Labor Day, we celebrate Decatur Day. These are the original, what I call the indigenous residents of Decatur, black folks who lived in Decatur back in the day and were displaced. We moved because of urban renewal, okay? Didn't have no choice. Our street doesn't even exist anymore, all right? And there's many of the others. But come out when you saw, last year we were right here on the grounds where the projects are, where he was saying, where the green space. We Saturday before Labor Day. We were there the last 2 years. They're throwing us out of there now. I gotta go try to negotiate something else. But if you see us out, and those are the original residents of Decatur who were displaced. And come join us. I mean, we'd like to celebrate. I just wanted to share that.
No, to piggyback on what she said, she kind of beat me too. I was gonna say that at the end that I wish to prolong this story because, like I said, I'm still learning, and even throughout editing and producing it, I was still learning that in the early 1900s, it was called the slums, and then Decatur Day, the remnants of that. Lily Hill Baptist Church, I still have footage of that. I just didn't put it in the film for school guideline reasons, but there's so much more to be told for the story, and I do wish to tell it the correct way and tell it in its full term. So I think you can share that. I don't think I dedicated. I still got y'all photos. I got y'all.
Hello, my name is Phil Cuffey. I wanted to say, Jarrett, outstanding job. I commend you on the hard work that you've done and shared with us. I'm also co-chair of the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights. And those of you who don't know, our mission is to educate, organize, and advocate African Americans on issues who have been oppressed through systemic racism, on issues of equity in education, housing, social justice, and reparations in Decatur and the surrounding area. So we have been active on this issue in particular in terms of going into the archives of the city of Decatur, essentially to do a CSI investigation. Because this is a scene of a crime with the destruction of the Beacon Hill community, and we want to pull out all the evidence to uncover it, to bring it out into the light, so that we can see just what happened. And to your question, how did it happen? Think about code enforcement and how it's supposed to work. Now, think of it also as it being weaponized. And so people in the Beacon Hill community were forced to make improvements to their home because of alleged code violations that devalued their property, and then in some cases that was followed up by offers for the eminent domain that was mentioned. So it was systemic, which means it happened on an operationalized basis. There was redlining, there was urban renewal, as we said, in 2 phases. And then there was also the criminalization of Black people, who in turn with crimes such as loitering. And that labor was in turn exacted on building the streets in the city of Decatur and in other areas. So for those who want to help us in this cause, in this work, you can reach out or go to the Beacon Hill Black Alliance website or see me afterwards to volunteer to help us in this, to do this important work, because it's an important part of addressing the harm that was created and the healing that is necessary for this community and also for the city, this county, and the state. So again, I commend you, Jarrett, for the important work, and those who are really committed to doing this work with us, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
I just had a quick question on the pictures.
Hi, I was curious about the picture of the young women dressed in uniform. Do you know what that's all about?
I think that's the year high school cheerleaders. To be honest, somewhere between 1960 and 1970. Yeah, but that's, I remember that. I think that's what.
That's gonna be Trinity.
I'm kind of curious about how that community develops, because I'm familiar with the history of this part of the county, because the Atlanta and Western railroads coming to this part of the world, their intention was to stop at Decatur, but the citizens of Decatur said no. They said we're not going to permit that. It stopped 12 miles to the south, which is now known as Atlanta. Why did this community of Black people develop in Decatur that was kind of a bastion of aristocrats at the time anyway? How did that come about?
Don't be honest. I remember that came across during my research. But I also remember Mr. King Call said something about it. Didn't you say beforehand, it had its own train station or something like that, but it didn't go through, I think it was, Fairmont Avenue, or was it?
on the
Outskirts, yeah.
East Highway.
I'll pass that question on to you.
Used to go all the way up, by the Decatur High School, they cut it off. They cut it off, you used to go right in the highway. 17 make the Decatur to go over there. That's where they cut it off.
So there was a train station?
Not the train station. Yeah, the Decatur Depot, yes. Right now, County Road.
Was it a bus station?
They had a bus station, and they had train depot. Train depot, you know, was up there where Jerry's station. It crosses County Road and East College Avenue, that's where it was. And the bus station was. Yeah, down by there, up over. Right. That's where the model bridge go from there, but that's where it used to sit, right there. And there was a train station, but they caught it on. It comes and come back every now and then. If you hear it, still come through there. But the old one, they just disappear.
Thank y'all for giving that.
And also the pattern, from what I read, like the pattern of Atlanta was, like, you know, black people, I think, moved into this neighborhood. And I heard that sometimes when they went to white people back then, they would live like on the side of, in the back or in the alley.
Oh, wow.
That's what I heard. Does anybody know about that? Like the patterns of how black and white neighborhoods were? So it's like an aristocratic neighborhood. The black families would like live behind in the alleys behind the house.
Like behind the businesses?
Yeah, behind the businesses. That's what I heard.
The majority of the black families live in Atlanta. So why is there a village conflict in Decatur?
I think, tell me I haven't listened to something correct, but I think it was started out at the bottom. They kind of determined as the slums, and then they kind of built it up to become affordable housing. And then so obviously the poorest people that ended up over economically was black people, and so they moved in and they built up this community, and that's why I hate to call it the project, but I believe that's the project of how it works. They take affordable housing and these minority communities build it up to where it's not deemed as slums or whatever they want to call it. But the media will paint this picture, and the government gets involved, even though the government is still government regulated either way, and they're trying to take it back. And so I think that's kind of how it works.
One more question.
One for the road. One of the early maps that you showed, that was showing this was African American school. One of the other structures identified, I believe, was an incinerator. And I used to work with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, by the Protection Division. And one of the patterns was that the lowest value land tended to be near industries, and that would now we recognize as toxic environments. And that's the value of the land initially. So that might, I don't know the history of this particular, but it did show up on the map. So that might have been a contributing factor to keeping the land values low. And the land values a lot of times drive the initial attraction for development. Once those businesses closed up, and at the time a lot of places were out of sight, out of mind, was barely over, it wasn't unusual for Georgia to build residential neighborhoods over former waste disposal sites. And then as the methane gas started deteriorates the building, called it health problems, they later changed the law, so now any land is used as a burial waste disposal site must be shown on the deed, so you can't hide it anymore. But anyway, in the past, that is a historical, situation that existed in Georgia.
Very exciting.
Thank you. All right, last question, and we'll wrap it up.
First, I want to thank you for putting it together. I am 75 years old, originally Decatur. My house is right where the jailhouse is now. I think that's 121 Trent Place, that was my address. What I would love to see though, first of all, I want to say Ms. Wilson was the first black mayor of Decatur. I just want to say that. And she did what you call practice once. So I just want to get that straight. But I would love to see, if we're going to really tell a story about Decatur, which is very dear to me, I would like to see you and Mr. Cummings and other people get together and really paint that beautiful picture. It's good, and I know your family well, but there's just so much richness. There's so much that people don't know. And when I see her and see Ms. Wilson's, if I'm 75, and she was in charge of 58 when I was in school, I would tell you her age. I wouldn't say that to you. But I'm telling you that there's a lot of good things. A lot of beautiful things. And a lot of people would help because the city of Decatur is growing. But I'm telling you that people need to know that history. And we're going to do this for the African Americans in Decatur, who are originally from Decatur. And I would like to see everybody kind of get together and really paint that picture because it's a story to be told, but it's a positive story to be told. And I was the last class of Trinity High School, 1967, and she was the first one that went to Decatur High. So it's just so much. And Ms. Wilson, I again just want to say that I really appreciate you. I thank you, and for me to be satisfied and God to be united. and you still remember her. I just want to commend you for all you did back in the day. And why you're able to please help me because there's so much beauty, there's so much richness. And unless we put it together, that story's never going to be told correctly. Thank you for doing that. My heart is
Just real quickly, I want to invite people to come to the table and look at some of Ms. Wilson's collection. Ms. Wilson donated her materials to us a couple of years ago. We also have interviews with Ms. Wilson on our website, on our YouTube channel. I also want to ask people from the Beacon Hill community and those parts of Decatur to sign up with the History Center so that we can talk to you as well. We are an archives. We are a museum. We believe that those stories are important and we'd love to talk to you as well. So if you feel so moved and would like to be interviewed or would like us to scan photos or scan some of your old report cards or have yearbooks, please get in touch with us. My card is on the table. We also have a sign-up sheet on the table as well. Thank you all for coming and thank you again, Jarrett. Well done.